In this episode of Common SENSimilla, we'll be talking to a pioneer in the Massachusetts cannabis industry. Today's guest began his current career path during COVID. When businesses were failing left and right and investors were pulling out of nearly every deal. Our guest would not take no for an answer. You wouldn't, right?
Of course not. Hell no.
Never. He never took no for an answer as he continued to figure out what cannabis-laden path his entrepreneurialism would lead him down, eventually starting one of the first cannabis delivery companies in Massachusetts. Ruben Seyde, co-founder of Delivered Inc. Let's see it.
Delivered Inc., baby.
Welcome to Common SENSimilla. Thank you so much for being here. I have to start by saying extra thanks because we were supposed to do this podcast 5 months ago. Sorry,
no,
buddy.
well,
I forgot.
It's all good. It's part of life. Part of life,
it's my
man.
first day?
No need to explain anything to me, man. As an entrepreneur myself, and you're one yourself too, so I know exactly the lifestyle you live, and I know how life can be. So I'm just grateful for you taking the time and seeing the value and having me on here. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, I'm stoked to talk to you. You've been in the corridors of CannaPlanners for many months now. And this is the first time I'm actually getting to meet you. So I'm really excited. I'm eager to hear about a lot of things, but we're gonna start kind of from the beginning, if that's cool with you. Let's talk about soccer. Can we talk about soccer?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about it. You've been involved in the game for a good chunk of your life, in various aspects of the sport, including being a referee. Yeah.
Yes, sir. 17 years of my life has been dedicated to soccer out of 27 years of living. So more than half my life.
Dude, that is way more than half of your life. I'm curious about your perspective of being the ref and now being the boss. What correlations do you see?
It's unfucking believable, the parallels between refereeing and being the CEO of a business, Will. And the craziest part to me is that when I was coming up on the referee side of the world, I didn't even once think about how all those skills and experiences were going to help me in opening and leading my own business.
No, you never do. That's hindsight, right? You just figure that out now when you're like, oh yeah.
That was a very unexpected blessing for sure. And just, I mean, for one clear example is that as a referee, you are single-handedly in charge of 22 players who all have their own emotions, their own issues of the day, their own fight with their partners, and they all use soccer as a means to escape all of that bullshit in their world. So there's already into every game, there's already so many emotions that you never even can begin to understand, but you kind of have to as a referee. And then you you add the fact that they have an angry coach yelling at them and yelling at me. Then you add another layer, which is all the fans in the crowd. Then you add another layer, which is the music, the alcohol, the Friday night lights, the competition. Exactly.
Yeah, it's high stress.
High stress, high intensity environment, but a lot of fun. And in that environment, you either learn to control your emotions and remember what the end goal is. And if you don't do those two things well, you're going to get influenced by every other layer that I just mentioned. And all of those layers, they try their hardest to influence you for one reason or another, whether it's because they want to win the game, whether it's because they're just pissed off and need to get that anger out, whether it's because they're a fan that wants to get drunk and wants to have some fun. They all have their own agenda. And you as the referee have to find it within you to find that peace, find that middle ground where you're able to tune out all that noise, all that bullshit, and just focus on what you came to do, which is to make sure that the two teams have a fair and even competition to be able to demonstrate their skills and find the winner for that match.
I love it. So it's cool that I mean, I don't know if I'm the first person to ask you about this kind of, this correlation here or not, but it's cool to hear you reflect on it now.
Yeah, no, this is honestly one of my favorite reflection points, to be honest with you, because I love soccer. I love refereeing. As an avid pot smoker, I can say without a doubt that the high that I get from refereeing is nothing like any other high. It doesn't compare at all to the high you get from weed. It's just such a cool experience. So now that I'm able to like sit back and smoke weed and relax, it's really cool seeing how all of those experiences helped guide me and helped me end up where I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. All these things that you do growing up, like you're just doing them. You're not realizing that they're ultimately going to like form your character as a future person. You know, you're just thinking about current you, especially when you're a young man or a young person, whatever. You don't have that perspective of, sometimes it sucks. You're like, oh fuck, I got to go ref another game of like 22 kids who are, you know, all got their problems and their issues, and the coaches, you know, whatever.
And then you got the parents, the soccer moms, the Karens.
Ooh. That's another podcast, Ruben. That's another podcast. Yeah. That's Common SENSimilla After Dark. We'll do that later. We'll get into the soccer moms, but I'm not much of a sports guy. Soccer's the one with the ball, right?
Okay. They all have a ball.
Do you? Oh, I don't know. Do you feel like you're pulling out ref skills still as the boss, or are you now the coach?
That's a really good question.
See, like just to completely commandeer this conversation and talk over you, like again, I'm not a sports guy, but I do feel like a coach, right? And a talent scout too. Like I'm a combination talent scout and coach. Like I think I'm Phil Jackson sometimes, right? Like, and I'm very lucky to be coaching the 90s era Bulls. Like I have amazing talent here. I want them here, and I'm just trying to like, you know, keep it moving. I don't have to, I'm lucky I don't have to deal too much with, you know, of course we're humans, we have personalities here. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But we're able to keep that in check.
Yeah, for sure.
And I like being the coach. What do you think? Are you still a ref?
So that's a great question, and I really appreciate it because it allows us to transition into your favorite part of the podcast, which is getting into the feels. So this here is a hat that I definitely took too long to realize that I stopped wearing, and that I needed to transition into that coach hat.
Your checkered hat.
Exactly. Yeah. I left it on too long.
Wear checkered hats. I don't know, dude.
No, not soccer referees. No.
Okay.
But I definitely left on the whistle in my mouth too long, and I didn't realize when we first opened and the first month or so of operations, I was still wearing that referee perspective, and it really hindered the opportunities we had as an organization. And I say that openly because I'm a transparent person, and I like recognizing when I fuck up and when I do things right. And in this situation, without a doubt, I fucked up. And it wasn't brought. I didn't realize it until my team actually sat me down and told me, "Hey, man, we really appreciate what you're doing. We can see what you're trying to do, but it's really not working out in what the team needs. So why don't you think about maybe trying this approach instead?" And when they sat me down and told me that was kind of like a huge oh fuck moment. It was like, wow, I'm over here thinking that I'm killing it, that I'm doing a really good job, and that we're heading in the direction we need to. But then when your team sits you down and they very candidly tell you that you really need to take a step back and reassess, you know, it's hard not to get the breath taken out of you, more or less, you know, especially with this being my first go at coaching people and really building that team up and trying to pull out the best of everyone so that we can all contribute equally and go where we want to be. So that was a really eye-opening moment. And that happened, not going to lie, Will, probably 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And I say that because we've only been open a month and a half. So the first month was all learning. Then at that point was when the team told me, hey, you know, take a step back and reassess. And since then, I sat the team down this time and I checked in with them just earlier this week. And I was like, hey guys, you guys did a great job bringing this to my attention. I think I took that feedback to heart. I think I started implementing what I heard was needed. But what do you guys think? Is that actually happening? Are you feeling the support that you want and need to feel to really?
Such an important quality in a leader, dude.
I mean, and
that's the difference between a ref and a coach, right? Like the ref is like trying to keep you is ensuring that you're following the lines. You're a director. You're not like the coach is the producer, the coach is the magician, like trying, keeping this thing moving down, keeping our sports analogies going, moving down the field, right? And it's the ref's job to make sure they stay within the bounds and follow the rules, right? I think that's really, I mean, it sounds like you did, but keep that team around, man. A team who's willing to like come to the boss and provide, when I used to work at Apple, and it was such a lame marketing term, but we called it fearless feedback. And that's really what it was, is you could go and say like, hey man, like, just so you know, like, here's what I'm seeing. Here's how here's how I'm interpreting what I'm seeing. Here's maybe a pathway where you can improve on this. Good luck. It's not being like, here's a red card, you're out.
And that's a great analogy too, and one that I didn't even realize until right now that you really put it like that as the referee, it's definitely all about enforcement. And that's where I messed up, is that to enforce, there has to be times where you have to be emotional and be able to bring out that empathy to understand that maybe the reason they're breaking the rules isn't because that was their intention, but it's maybe because there was something else going on in their head. So I thought as the coach now, I was like, well, I'm doing that. I'm providing that empathy. So what the fuck is wrong with these people? Like that was where I was like, I noticed something wasn't quite clicking, but it wasn't clear to me why it wasn't clicking until they gave me that fearless feedback and told me, look, man, this is why it's not clicking. So you really need to fix that shit, or something's not going to work out here.
That's awesome. And it's really valuable that they gave it to you early on in this thing, because generally what happens, right? Like, people aren't confident. And again, the feels, right? It's about being confident in yourself, from both sides of the spectrum there. Like, for an employee to go to the boss, the head of the company, and be like, Ruben, here's where I think you need to focus. That takes some guts. For you to accept that feedback also takes guts, because you're not thinking about it until it's presented to you, right? Yeah.
And one thing that I think really helps in that sense is that you keep using the word employees, but we really don't have employees. Everyone that's working here is an owner of the business as well. So we all have our own stake. And I don't know if that's one of the biggest factors, but I think it is, that because we all have our own stake, we all truly care about the success of the business, and we're all willing to put our ego to the side, forget about that, and remember that we're working on a team towards we want to win the Lamborghini trophy, or whatever that is, and we're not going to get there if we're all focusing on ourselves and just fighting and emotions and all that bullshit. We need to let that go, put the team together, and huddle and make that game plan to get to that finish line.
I totally align with it. Everything you just said. Like, it is a constant, and sometimes you talk to founders, CEOs, whatever, business owners, and if they're good, they'll say something like, I surround myself with people smarter than I am, or they'll say something like, I know that I don't know lots of things, right? And that right there alone, the ability to at least be self-aware, to say like, I don't have all the answers, but we do share this common goal. It's so important. It's so important. It's just going to make you guys stronger. Like, I want to get to the co-founder thing. We're jumping ahead, but like, I want to get to that because it's an interesting dynamic. It's a tight relationship, and I know you've been through a few, as have I. We'll get there. Let's go back even further. Can we go to Mexico?
Yeah, well, just to clarify, I was born here, though.
I want to go back to where your parents came from. So you're the child of immigrants. I want to go back a generation before.
Let's do it.
Where are your parents? Why are we coming to the States?
Because they are well aware that in Mexico, there's not the opportunities or safety that children really need in order to have the best chance at life, and to have the best chance to do whatever they want to do. So when my parents realized this, they were having their own family issues. They were having, issues in Mexico that they didn't have a support system that they necessarily wanted. And instead of just playing victim and deciding, what am I going to do now? They literally uprooted their entire lives, and immigrated here to the United States, where they had no family, no friends, no connections, no money, nothing. And they started brand new, just to give me and my sister a chance, or the best chance possible, to have a good future. And that's something that I'm eternally grateful for. I really appreciate the fuck out of them. And I really appreciate all the sacrifices that they went through to really give us this opportunity. Because at the end of the day, Delivered wouldn't be around if I was in Mexico.
Sure, of course. I love that, and I love this. The idea of entrepreneurialism isn't, you know, or sort of the characteristics that make up an entrepreneur aren't solely, to me, reliant on someone running a business. Like, you have to be forward thinking. You have to be thinking about the future generations of your employees, your family, like whatever, and try to make it better for them. I love that your parents were like, let's fucking go. Like, there's something better. It's out there. We don't know, but we're going to leave. We're going to leave everything we've known for, generations, right? We're just going to bounce, right? And go to Massachusetts, I guess. Why not?
Yeah. And
what's snow? Really... Let's figure it out.
That's literally how it happened. My dad was working at a hotel, and he was working the front desk down in Mexico. And he met, like, this random person came to check in, and that random person, they ended up becoming good friends. And that ended up being who invited my dad. And they weren't friends at this point. Like, literally when they met, the guy invited my dad, and he was like, hey, we have an open room over here if you guys ever want to come down. And my dad, like, not knowing this guy for more than a weekend, he was like, this seems like a great idea. Let's go do that. Let's give it a shot and restart our lives.
That's such courage, though. Like, that's straight up courage, and it's not the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So when it comes time to, like, make crazy moves or seemingly crazy moves in your own life, like, you can draw from the experiences of your parents, who, like, had the biggest cojones to just bounce, go hang out with some person they had just met, and, like, figure out what life could be for their children.
And I can't tell you enough how much this influenced me. And
tell me all of it. I'm dying to know.
One direct influence is one that you already touched upon: soccer refereeing. The only reason I got into that when I was 11 years old was because I would go down to the soccer field with my dad, and I'd watch him referee. He got into that. So, like, I don't even know what got him into that, but he was doing that when I was probably 7, 8 years old. And then by the time I was 11, I was, constantly seeing him out on the field, just watching him, observing him, seeing what he was doing. Yeah. And to me, that was the coolest fucking thing. It's like, wow, my dad's a motherfucking soccer referee. How can that be me? How can I follow in his footsteps?
That's so cool.
Literally the day that in Massachusetts back then, you had to be 11 years old or older to become a referee. So the day I turned 11, I was like, sign me the fuck up.
Red card.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point, I was literally just trying to be like my dad. I had no idea what soccer was going to mean to me. No idea that I was going to fall in love with refereeing as a hobby and move up the ranks over there. And I mean, today, like, I literally referee the New England Revolution. I may not be doing their MLS regular season games, but when it comes around for them to do scrimmages and warm-ups and things like that, I'm in the roster of people that they consider to referee these games. And like, this is all a path that I would have never imagined back then. I was literally just saying, wow, my dad is the coolest person around. I really want to be like him. And it's heartwarming to me that one decision, that one inspiration he made in me had such an influence for me.
Yeah, it's become a part of your defining characteristics. So what did your parents do when you were growing up?
They did everything and anything.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Both my parents had newspaper routes. So they would go get up at 3 a.m. and deliver hundreds of thousands of newspapers throughout the central Mass area. My dad worked in hotels. He did a lot of, like, housekeeping, management roles. My mom would there was a factory in Leominster, Massachusetts that would fold all the tissue paper that you see, like, when you get a gift basket or something. and that has tissue paper in it, my mom would literally be the one that folds that and makes it look all pretty in the packaging that you would buy it at Family Dollar or whatever. So she and all this times, like when they were delivering newspapers, when they were doing that, they also did like cleaning, office cleaning at night. They exposed me to so many of those jobs, and by exposed I mean like literally when I was in middle school,
you worked for them.
Yes.
Oh, Ruben, you're old enough to carry a mop. Great.
Yeah, and you're done, and you're out of school already. Let's go fucking clean. Yeah.
How dexterous are your fingers? Can you fold? Let's go.
Thankfully, the folding was more when I was a toddler, preschool age. So then I was literally like, my mom would have her set up on the table in the living room, and I would be crawling under her, playing with my cars and doing all this nonsense that children do.
So looking back at all that, because they had lots of jobs for I assume they're still doing whatever they're doing, right? Do you look back at that and think, maybe it did both of these things. And I'm just thinking this now, like for me, that would do one of two things. It would turn me off to being employed. Like, oh, this is how hard you have to work for other people to take care of me and my sister or whatever. And also I think that would conversely make me feel like I have to figure this out myself. I can't be doing all that.
Yeah.
Do you relate to that at all? Like, how did it make you feel? Were you self-conscious of it in one way or another?
Of course. Yeah. And I relate 100% to your second point, but the first point was a complete 360 for me. The complete
it either is like, oh, it instills like a crazy work ethic.
Yeah.
Or it's like, I have to find another way to achieve this. And it's still from a crazy work ethic, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, the crazy work ethic is 100% what happened for me. Because I saw them working their ass off, and I would, you're just aware as a kid. So I would see that.
Yeah.
I didn't have the things that all the other kids at my schools did. I definitely stuck out. Like, it was clear that I was wearing hand-me-downs, whereas everyone else was wearing brand new clothes when school started. Everyone was wearing brand new sneakers. Like, they would have shoes to wear, like one pair of shoes every day, whereas I was wearing the same shoes every single day. Like, these little differences were, and even field trip money. Like, there was times when asking my parents for money to go on a field trip, it was like they gave me the money, but it was a struggle for them to get it. And whereas my peers, they were like, oh, that's it. I'll go get that tonight and be right back. And so these differences really caught my attention early on. I would see my parents working their ass off, but I would see that we still didn't have the life that everyone else around us did. So I was like, this isn't really adding up. And that's where I was thinking what you just said, that I need to do something different for myself. But back then I was also thinking, not only that, but if I want nice things, if I want to treat myself and be like my peers, I need to be the one that starts working so I can give myself the money to afford these things, instead of having to ask my parents, who already had limited money that needed to be allocated to more important things.
Interesting.
Like, realistically, I knew that
self-sufficiency, the idea of self-sufficiency came way earlier to you than
exactly. Like, I knew everything that I wanted.
It did for me.
I knew everything I wanted was irrelevant compared to the struggles and issues that my parents were dealing with. So I didn't feel right having to beg them for money and have them make them allocate their limited resources towards me instead of the more important things. So that was another factor, that when I turned 11 and I could start refereeing, that's make some money, baby. Let's start buying my own Xbox games. Exactly.
It's wild too, because that's like something you held on to prior to being 11. You're like, cool. Like, for some people, it's like, oh, when I turn 18, I can buy cigarettes, or when I turn 16, I get my license. When I turn 11, I can get a job. Like, I don't know that that's ever something like, I had tons of jobs growing up, but I don't know that I was ever like stoked to get any of them.
Yeah, no,
You know what I mean?
And that's the thing about me, that I don't know if it's because of how I grew up or if it's my general attitude or what, but 9 out of 10 jobs, I'm always fucking stoked to get them. Like everything for me is just a really cool opportunity to make money, obviously, but to learn, gain new experiences, meet new people, and see how all of these things can be glued together to get to the next level in life.
Yeah.
So, and you know, you mentioned driving and getting your license at 16. For me, like, I didn't care about, you know, the rules that society put on people. So
totally.
For me,
I started driving when I was 14. I started stealing my grandmother's car when I was like 13, 14. So
exactly. And I got my first real job where I would clock in and everything, I think at 15 years old. And I would drive from Pittsburgh, Massachusetts to Clinton, Massachusetts, which is a half-hour commute every day. And I didn't get my license until I was 18.
I have a similar thing. I was working at I'm from Rhode Island, so I was working at a clam shack in Bristol, and they would send me over to like Middletown, Rhode Island, like over by Newport. And I was like, yo, I'm 15. They're like, fuck it. Here are the keys to the van. I'm like, van? Like, what, are you kidding me? And they'd be like, yeah, here. You know, I don't know how to read a map. I don't know how to do anything. But like 15, I'd just be cruising over the, you know, Newport Bridge or whatever, going to pick up clams. Dude, yeah, fuck it. You just do it. You figure it out. I want to talk about your parents a little more. So like I went to a few private schools. I you know, I was friendly with lots of people not from the States whose families sent them to college or boarding school, you know, similar reasons, to have a new opportunity, to be exposed to new cultures, whatever. In addition to that, having listened to hundreds of interviews with entrepreneurs, children of immigrants, maybe first generation Americans, there's a theme I've heard personally and anecdotally through interviews where occasionally the parents of the children of first generation, they will hold a higher standard to their kid. One thing you hear all the time is my parents wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, Those are the two, like, I don't know why, professional, you know, professions that first generation Americans seem to like want to funnel their kids to. This is what I see as being the most successful route. You're going to go to med school, you're going to go to law school. Did your parents ever, and I'm not necessarily talking about law school or med school, but do you think your parents ever had some sort of plan for you that 100%. Maybe you fit or didn't fit into?
100%. I vividly remember being like in 3rd or 4th grade, sometime in elementary school. I was riding in the car with my parents up front, and there was a trash truck, like a trash collection truck in front of us. And, you know, they were just collecting trash on the curb or whatever. And I said to them, all excited, I was like, hey guys, like, I would love to become a trash.
Off the back of that truck. It looks dope. Let's go.
I was like, that's what I want to do with my life. Yeah. My mom instantly.
Like,
I gotta give credit where it's
due. I feel so bad for trash. But by the way, you know, waste, whatever it is, for some reason, historically, they've always got the shit end of the professional stick. It's an honorable profession. I'm sorry you didn't fulfill your childhood dreams. But let's
not only is it honorable, but in Mexico, trash collection people are one of the richest people out there. So
that's hilarious.
It really is. There's good money in trash. People just don't understand that. Anyways, so when I said that, my mom flipped the fuck out on me. She was like, you are not fucking doing that. You need to go to school, college, become a doctor, literally everything you said.
Yeah.
My dad, on the other hand, he was instantly like, whoa, calm down, mom. He's just a kid. He's just exploring with his imagination. Let him think like that a bit. Let him see what happens. It's not like he's actually going to quit school and go ride on trash trucks today. So let him, it's okay for him to think like that. Yeah. And that moment stuck out in my mind just because it really gave me that permission that I needed to know that it's okay to not necessarily stay on the perfect track that everyone else is trying to be on. So yes, my mom has always been like that, to the point where she actually, in the last 10 years
sends
or so,
you links for Yale med school or something.
No, so she actually went to law school on her own. She went back to undergrad, got her college degree, and then went to law school. And the whole time she was bugging me about it and being like, you should come do this too. So yeah,
she became an attorney. She like passed the bar and everything
in Mexico. Yes.
The boss move.
Yes. Yeah. She's a fucking badass. And she has her own law firm now. That woman, she needs her own podcast because she is a miracle worker on her own. Yeah. Awesome. No. Yeah. And yeah, pretty
so they maybe had some sort of, they had some hopes and wishes. They came here hoping that they would start a family that would, what does every parent want for their kid? To have a better life, to be safer, to be taken care of. Right. And you ultimately were able to do that. You had to forge out on your own. You did, you were a reffin for whatever you said, 17 years. You were a paralegal forever. So prior to even starting this company. So like you and I share kind of one thing. Well, we share lots of things, but in this instance, we share, I don't think that either of us started a company before we started these companies, right?
I attempted to start a couple companies.
Okay, we're gonna get through that because that's important. This is all part of the same kind of chapter of your life, though. Prior to starting your interest in cannabis businesses, which ultimately then led to Delivered, right? Yeah. Before that, you were an employee.
More or less, yeah. Yeah. And one thing, really funny story that I want to mention here about my mom. When I quit my paralegal,
aren't they?
Yeah. When I quit my job as a paralegal in 2021, I called her up all excited. I was like, hey, Mom, I finally have the funding and partners in place to be able to quit my job and focus full time on this startup that I'm opening up. And I was all excited. Her reaction was like, what the fuck are you doing? What do you mean you're quitting your job? Like, yeah. She was like, get your shit together. Like you're old enough where you shouldn't be doing the bullshit like this. Yeah. You should have a job. You should be focusing on your career, get ready to go back to school and go.
And when am I going to get some grandkids? Ruben?
Every conversation that question comes up.
Soon. Don't rush Ruben. All right. I want to, so the point of this question is because I love talking about the calling, right? There is ultimately whether or not someone's a continued failed entrepreneur before they do the thing that, defines them or they're never anything. And then they start the thing that they're now doing. There's a push that happens. And call it what you want. It can be the universe saying, religious people call it a calling. Right. I've actually interviewed last season on this very podcast. I interviewed Katie Enright, who is the CEO of, I'm going to butcher the name of her company. Lavinia is the name of the company. And it's a cannabis sex lube company. Katie is a lovely person. And literally prior to starting this company, she was on the path to become a nun. And so she had two callings, one literally from God to tell her to serve God. And then another one to be like, nah, fuck that. Go this way and do the exact opposite. Well, not really. Serve me differently. Right. I'm curious if you align with that at all, not necessarily 100%. Being a nun, but if, what was that push that said, yo, paralegal, schmeralegal?
So my calling wasn't to be a nun. It wasn't to be an entrepreneur. It was to be a pothead. And yeah. So little backstory. School was never fun for me. I was always miserable there. And I hate to say this because when I say it, I feel very I feel like I'm bragging, but school always was so easy to me. And it came so naturally to me that everything that they taught us was just fucking boring to me. It was like, how the fuck did you guys understand this by now? She already said it one time. What more do you guys need? So I would always find myself doing my own thing in school. So we're in third grade elementary health class. I'm sitting in Wrangled Elementary School in Fitchburg. There's this room with a blue carpet on the floor. It's got, like the cinder block walls. It's like a boring ass typical classroom. I'm sitting on the floor. I'm flipping through our health book. I'm just flipping through the pages and I stumble upon a page that has a pot leaf on it. And on the pot leaf, it has a red circle on it saying, do not do this.
Mhm.
And instantly it catches my attention. I start reading about this. I'm like, why is this not allowed? Why is this
leaf
illegal?
bad?
Yeah. And everything that the health book was telling me, it was like, yeah, that sounds, I guess, not good, but it also doesn't sound horrible. It doesn't sound like it's going to kill you. So
Yep.
ever since that day, the curiosity was stuck in my head. And
That's
I
so
always,
interesting.
dude, seriously, like I knew from that moment that pot leaf was going to have some significance in my life. I just had no fucking idea where or when
How did you
it
even
would
know?
come
I
back.
mean, I guess it told you what it was.
Exactly. Yeah, it had the full description. Yeah, like it said, just say no to drugs. They're gonna fry your brain or whatever. Like the typical propaganda against weed that you would see in the
Totally.
health book.
I have the same origin story, bro. Like, you know, I'm a product of the Dare generation. I'm born in 80, so I'm, right in the heart
Exactly.
of the Reagan and Clinton say no to drugs campaign. And I remember exactly that exact same thing, dude, except it was at a Dare class, right? And I've told this a few times on this podcast, so I'm sorry, but
No.
they had one of the things they used to bring around was the briefcase with the plexiglass. Okay, so they'd open up the briefcase and it would lay flat, and there's plexiglass and there's little compartments with drugs in it. And literally, like, there's 50 compartments and it's all full of like acid, cocaine, like all these things. And I remember that being like, how do I open this thing? How do I open this thing?
Seriously.
But it
So
was
for
just,
me,
it did the exact opposite to me that they intended, which is,
so when
these are
the
all the
door
things to never do. And I'm like, I'm doing them all.
literally. So the first time that door opened for me, I was in seventh grade. I was 13 years old. I had literally just gotten home from school, and one of my good friends / cousins, he calls me up and he's like, "Yo, my man, you want to go smoke some weed?" And I'm like, "Yo, shut the fuck up. You're fucking with me, aren't you?" And he's like, "No, that's serious." And then I'm like, "Fuck yeah, let's go do this." So we sneak into this abandoned school that was literally
Dude,
down the
wait,
block.
hold on. The things you had to do to smoke weed back in the day. So we had to get an airplane. We had to go to Nevada. We were in the middle of the desert. There, we found
There was a crack pipe.
out of abandoned buildings I've smoked weed in, dude.
Yeah, but there's some of the best memories I've had. Those
Absolutely.
were really
Break a
fucking
window or
good
two
days.
before you leave.
How could you not?
You gotta.
Yeah, so we snuck in there. We had the apple, we had the tinfoil on the apple, and
The best.
that was the first time I ever smelled the smell of like burning weed. And wow, it was beautiful. And another funny story that this reminds me of, I remember riding around again, being a kid, and I would smell like a skunk in the road, and my parents would be all grossed out by it, and I'd be like, "That smells kind of good," and anyone else interested? Yeah. So yeah, seventh grade, I smoked it. I fell in love even more. I've been a pothead since then, but I never really knew what else to do with that passion. I knew that I loved weed.
We didn't have anything to do with it then, right? It was either enjoy it recreationally or like break the law and sell it. Like, I mean, okay, like you didn't have a choice, right?
Yeah, so high school comes and goes. I'm smoking weed every day. I'm going to school high and whatnot, making the most of life. I somehow get into college. I somehow get into BU, which is a pretty good school, and I even get an incredible financial aid package. So things were kind of working out for me, but I was still a huge pothead. I was still playing the
hold on. You keep saying you were a huge pothead, but do you think, like, are you saying that because you feel like somehow that was like a risk, or it was because you also said that school was easy? Like it probably isn't a surprise that you got into BU. It's probably not even a surprise that you got scholarships for athletics or maybe academics. Like those things are huge. So do you think like being a pothead, and I totally relate to this, dude, because like when you're that old smoking weed in an age where like it's not legal, it's bad, it's scheduled against, with heroin, like it's lumped into these things that can and sometimes do kill people. Like that can make you feel feelings, that can make you feel guilt, shame, whatever. Like Do you think, do you align with that? Like, were you feeling that, or were you like a proud pot smoker the whole time?
Proud pot smoker my whole life.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, dude. I've always I've always been proud.
But
I've
you never
always
felt like, oh, was there ever a minute where you were like, I wonder if this is holding me back? Whatever that means.
No.
Yeah, me
no, no.
Me neither.
No.
I never felt that way.
Yeah. No,
I never felt that way.
Never once in my life. No. And I was always proud to reek of weed when I walked into the room. Like that,
Sure.
that was
I relate to that maybe a little bit for sure. Like being like, and part of that is like that arrogance that you think you had before, which I want to talk about some more, because that is a hugely common theme in all of these conversations, which is like, I was smarter than the people around me, which isn't a bad thing to say or even realize. Most people aren't self-aware enough to know when they are or aren't smarter than the people around them, but that can be a frustrating thing. And for a lot of people, yours truly included, like there comes a point where it's like, okay, well, if you're smarter than people and you can do things better than people, you arrogant fucking asshole, then like go do it. Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like ultimately
100%.
that's a pretty common characteristic with a lot of the, you know, business owners, founders, co-founders, whatever. It's not a bad thing. Like you just understood that like, I'm not quite the same.
And
it doesn't mean I'm special, but it means I have to like, I'm not going to beat to their drum.
Yeah. And for me, so here's where I like to call it that I was playing the victim card, because I was aware that I was smarter than your average folk. I was aware that I had the tools in me to get ahead in life, but I was too busy playing the victim card, saying, "Oh, I grew up in the ghetto. Oh, I grew up with like Brown, you know, like a Brown family. Like, there's no way in hell that I'm ever going to get ahead in life. So I might as well just, you know, have a good time."
Was that an internalization, or was that like something you actually lived?
I mean,
a little
it's 100% internal, but more than likely came from stuff that I actually lived.
Yeah, and it's ironic because that's not at all, you know, your parents came here proud, probably, you know, maybe not even caring the color of their skin until they get here, right? And that might be a thing. But like they're trying to instill this sense of individualism, all these things. And no matter how hard anybody tries, right, you're still going to deal with baggage.
Exactly. And I mean, yeah, no, growing up, I can't tell you the amount of friends or people that I knew that have died either from OD and from shootings, from car accidents. So for me, when I grew up, I was like,
that all validates some of those fears, right? You're like, oh, I'm Brown, I'm from the ghetto, and like, here's the proof, all my friends are dead.
That's going to be me. Like I never once like. So yeah, even though I got into BU, even though I got those scholarships, I was still playing that victim card. I was like, I'm just wasting my time here.
How'd you change that mindset?
It took a while. So I graduated.
But you're still working on it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Still working on it. Every day is another chance to keep growing. But I graduated from BU in 2018. I had no idea what to do with my life. I got the first job that I could. I literally applied for 6 months to hundreds of jobs. Everything was denied until the small one lawyer or law firm in Brookline. He reached out to me. He interviewed me. We instantly connected, and he was the first person to give me like a chance at a professional job, I guess. Which is not true, because I did work in accounts receivable at a corporate hotel in college.
Well,
so
we'll edit that part out. We'll make sure no one calls you out. You won't get canceled.
So he gives me a chance and I literally, with him, I got about 3 hours of training from the previous paralegal, and that was his last day. So he left, and then the next day when I got to work, I was the lead paralegal for a law firm that had over 200 cases, and I had no fucking idea what a paralegal even did.
Wow.
So I literally got thrown
right in the fire.
Yeah. And he believed in me. He was like, you seem to be able to get ahead in whatever you're in. So this seems like a good job for you. So I took the job, and even though I had no idea what I was doing, not to brag, but I thoroughly fucking excelled.
You're not bragging, buddy. You're not bragging. It's okay. You can take credit. You crushed it.
Yeah, I crushed his expectations. I improved productivity. I improved the cases we were winning. It was all fucking amazing. To the point where we started hiring more paralegals. So now I had a team that I was managing and working with and training and whatnot. And now like we were growing that firm into a legit law firm with like a bigger entity and whatnot. But I wasn't happy this whole time. I would go home and I was miserable. I was not happy working a desk job. I was not happy commuting 2 hours because I was still living in Pittsburgh, driving to Boston, and everything about the setup was just miserable for me. So, and to me, like that's similar to school where I was miserable but still excelling. So like some of these things I kind of just naturally do well at, and I've realized this. So I'm still playing that victim card though. Like I don't know what to do. And then eventually I'm scrolling through Facebook one day at work, and the Cannabis Control Commission has an ad that popped up in my newsfeed. They're like, we opened up the social equity program to help people impacted by the war on drugs get into the legal industry. Come apply. I was very interested in it. It caught my attention. I was like, holy shit, I qualify for this. This seems to give me a lot of solutions that I'm looking for.
But prior to that, prior to being served that ad on Facebook, had this crossed your mind at all?
So I had a yearning for business. Like my whole life, I can remember being in high school, sitting on my school bus, driving to school. I would always think to myself, one day I'm going to own an empire and I'm going to be managing like,
what can I sell all these idiots on this bus?
And something I haven't even mentioned is that I did have the lemonade stand when I was in middle school. I did in high school, I would buy old iPhones that were broken or whatever. I'd resell them. In college, I would buy weed and resell it. So I was always, selling shit and trying, like playing with that concept, but I never really knew how to take it to the next level. So I see that ad, but I'm like, fuck it. I'm a victim. How am I ever going to get accepted in that? And even if I get accepted, what the fuck am I going to do with that? So I scroll by, I ignore it, don't think another thing about it until...
The irony being this is an ad specifically for victims.
That's a great fucking point. Yeah.
Right? Like that's the whole point. And you're like, I'm too victim-y.
What the fuck am I going to do with this?
Yeah. There's no way.
So 2-3 months go by, and that same exact fucking ad pops up again in my newsfeed at work. Except this time it's telling me, hey, the window for the first social equity cohort to get into it closes tomorrow. So this is your last chance to apply. So I look at that and I'm like, now the call to action is there, but now there's like that time restraint. I'm like, fuck it. What are the odds that this comes up to me again? What are the odds that I have literally 1 day left to submit this application? Let's fucking do this. Let's submit this application and see what happens. I submit it, and typical CCC, I don't hear back for another 3 months.
Right. But you probably forgot you even submitted.
Yeah, I was like, nothing's going to happen from here. I knew I was just wasting my time. I knew I was the victim, and nothing was going to come from this. But then eventually they reach out. They're like, hey, you got in. We have an opening seminar this day in August. So I'm like, wow, very excited. I tell my boss I'm not going to be in work that day. I'm going to do this. And from the very beginning, this guy was so fucking supportive. He didn't even understand what my vision or where I wanted to be. But he was like, go do whatever you have to do. I'll take care of the law firm. I just want to see you succeed. So I get the day off. I go to this event. And at the seminar, at this point, I'm starting to realize that if I want to get ahead in life, I need to be intentional. I can't just be a victim. I need to be proactive. So I'm already thinking of life with this new lens. And when I get to the seminar, back in college and high school, I would have gone straight to the back of the room, sat by myself, put my hoodie on, put my headphones on, and just, done my own thing. But I'm like, I'm a new person. I have this great opportunity. I need to take advantage of it one way or another. So I push myself to sit in the very front row, and I immediately start talking to the dude next to me. This dude, his name is Evan Plumeritis. We instantly connect. He starts bragging. I mean, not bragging, but like very excitedly telling me about he already has a cultivation facility in Oklahoma. He's already making money. He's telling me how he himself is a fucking felon. Despite that, like he comes from a broken family. He has his own issues, but despite all that,
he's way more a victim than your ass, dude.
Exactly. That was the slap in the face. That's the slap in the face that I needed to be like, holy fuck. Wow. If this guy is able to figure all his shit out, become a millionaire, own a bunch of properties, and own a cultivation facility, what the fuck is stopping me? Yeah. So by the end of that day, we clicked it off so well that he invited me to his home. We smoked a joint over there. And by the time I'm leaving his home, I'm walking away with thousands of dollars of free grow equipment that he just gave to me. He was like, I like you. I want to see what you can do. So why don't you take this grow equipment to your place and see if you can start growing? So I did that. Yeah, dude, he gave me the shot. He gave me the spark. And probably a month after that, him and I had about 55 acres of land tied down in Western Massachusetts that we were going to convert into an outdoor farm. And then a month after that, we had the HCA. We were going through the special permitting process. We had the provisional license submitted. It had been deemed complete. Now March comes around. We're getting ready to go through our background checks. But the fucking economy shuts down. COVID comes around. It's a public health emergency, and everyone has to stay home, and who knows what's going to happen with the economy. So at this point, we have 2 weeks left to act on an option to purchase the 55 acres of land. And we had the money lined up. We were just waiting for the provisional license before we touched the money to complete the purchase. But then when the economy shut down, all these investors with their money, they pulled out. They disappeared. They're like, we can't afford to take that risk.
We can't give you money.
Exactly.
We need it.
So this leaves me with a 2-week window to get enough money to act on this option, or I lose the land. And if I lose the land, I lose the license. And ultimately, I lost both. We weren't able to find new funding, and all of that kind of just went out the window. But right when that was happening, the Cannabis Control Commission came out with the home delivery license. And at that same time, Lantern/Drizzly came out with their own incubator program for home delivery licensees.
I remember Lantern. We lost one of my favorite employees to them. And then 3 months later, they lost all of their employees. Right?
Yeah. No, that's unfortunate how things work out sometimes.
There's two things I want to talk, just not to totally hard stop on the story, because I want to keep it going, but there's two things that I think are important to touch on. One is like the feels part, which is I was, similar, dude. I was the dude, hoodie, back of class, like, doing my thing, but not eager to be engaged, not eager to put myself out there in any way that might confirm the fears I have of, the insecurity, the insecure fears I have about myself, about not being smart enough, not being good enough, not being whatever enough. And then ultimately being like, so I relate to sitting in the back of the classroom, but I also relate to that day when you're like, fuck that. I'm sitting in the front of the classroom and I'm like gonna talk to people. And maybe the dude I was yesterday would think the dude I am today is a total dork, but I'm gonna do these things because I understand that I'm in a shell. And the thing keeping me in the shell is this voice that exists in my own head that says, put up your hoodie. Don't go to that thing. Don't leave your house. Don't go networking. It's a scary world out there. Just sit on your couch and smoke pot, and one day you'll die. Right? Like just don't do anything. Like that's literally a voice that I think all of us as humans deal with. There's something there's a voice that wants to keep us safe. And sometimes it's mean, right? And all it's trying to do is protect you, but sometimes it's really fucking mean, that voice. Yeah. So like I definitely relate to like being that person who is like, being engaged is so lame. Like, why be engaged when you can stay at home and do nothing? versus ultimately being like, no, those voices have a purpose, but they're for recognition. It's for me to recognize them, not to actually take their advice, most times. So then going to the front of the classroom and doing something that ultimately breaks you out of your shell is a huge thing. Like beyond being served a Facebook ad, beyond like feeling victimhood is in a lot of ways fear too, right? Saying I'm a victim because of X, Y, or Z is the same voice telling you, it's just a different reason as to why you should not do anything, right?
Yeah.
It's the same voice. It just has a different dialogue, keeping 100%. You back and making sure that you stay fearful and attentive, really.
100%.
I'm curious, beyond the Facebook ad, like, why did you shut that voice? Like, what made you be like, I'm going to the front today?
It had to have been that yearning that I had to be a successful business owner. That's something that growing up, my dad would always tell me that he had a dream to own his own business. He always played around with the idea of opening a restaurant, a limo company, just a bunch of different ideas he had. But I always saw that there was always something stopping him from achieving those goals. Yeah. And he never let himself reach the goals. And ultimately he passed away. And now, he never got to live the dreams that he wanted to. He lost his opportunity. And it wasn't because he wanted to lose it. It's just because he was never able to take advantage of the tools that life gives you to get to that point. Sure. And so he planted the seed in me that I wanted to own my own business too. So that idea was always there. It was always there. And then something you keep talking about is so hugely important. And it's that self-awareness. Yep. Something happened between 2018, which was when I graduated college, and 2021, which is when I quit my job, that just turned on my self-awareness. And I realized that I have these yearnings to do things. I have these goals, these dreams, but I know I'm not going to get there by being the person I've been. I know that just looking at the people that get to where I want to be, they don't let these little fears, they don't let their circumstances control where they end up. Instead, they take advantage of their circumstances. They bend reality in whatever way they have to in order to reach that goal that they have. Exactly. So, and I think it was really exposing myself to podcasts, to how I built this. That was one of the OGs for me that really started showing me, like you said, the emotions and the people behind these big movements. It wasn't until, it was the fact that started getting humanized to me through those podcasts. Same. That I was able to realize, like, holy shit, I'm no different than these people. I have the same access to these tools. It's just been my mindset that's been stopping me from getting there. Yeah. And one thing, you got to give credit where it's due. One thing that definitely helped in this self-awareness journey for me, and it's contrary to most people, but it's social media. When you leverage social media in a good way, it can open so many fucking doors for you. There's a lot of people that. Can you give me an example? Yeah. So I joined a group on Facebook called Sales Pros or Sales Talk for Sales Pros. And I joined this group without me even being a salesperson. Like I wasn't selling anything. I was working as a paralegal, but I saw this group and I saw it because someone else that I admire name dropped that group, and they were like, it's full of wisdom. You should really join it. So I joined it. I started networking with people there. Not networking. I started being what's it called? The fly on the wall, and kind of just observing what people post about, what they talk about, what they complain about, who gets ahead, who's actually doing shit. And from there, I joined multiple different groups that all were focused on, being aware, reaching your goals, doing well in sales, being like a big, like just accomplished people. It was all people that do big shit and do it well and do it often, giving that feedback and giving that advice to other people that also wanted to do that, but weren't there quite yet. So these support groups really opened up my eyes to show me what else is out there in this world. It showed me that you don't need a college degree. You don't even need a high school education. All you need is to read a couple books, talk to a couple people, and be self-aware to move forward and get the things that you want. So these people, like, huge credit to all these like group of people that really opened up these doors for me. And then like the last one on social media that really helped me was that all of these groups, I didn't know it at the time, but most of them, they work as funnels. They're all like the entry.
They're tools.
Yeah. So I was being funneled down the whole time without even without realizing it. And then eventually I made it down to the product they were trying to sell, which is a mastermind group. And again, I never even heard of a mastermind group, no idea what it was, no idea what they did. So when I first started getting exposed to this, it was like, wow, bunch of fucking cult followers over here. Like, look at these clowns. What the fuck are they gonna do? But again, I stayed in the groups. I observed, I learned, and I saw that the people that were at the top of the funnel and like posting about the groups and sharing all these resources and doing well, they were also the ones all the way at the bottom, the ones that actually had bought in on the master group and whatever, and were actually taking that shit serious. Then there was the people who wanted to be there or they wanted to be successful, but they stayed at the top of the funnel. They never, like, whenever anyone pitched them these tools, they'd always be like, fuck that. Why would I spend that much money on something like this? There's no value in that. I'm going to keep doing my own thing. So, you know, that self-awareness helped me realize that I want to be up there, but I also don't want to end up like these people that are kind of just roadblocking
spinning
themselves.
Their wheels.
Exactly. Totally. So I literally had no money in my name. So I took out a $2,500 loan to join one of these mastermind groups called Apex. This mastermind group fucking changed my life.
We'll link it in the description for sure.
I don't know. We'll see about that. Not? I don't know. No, maybe not. I'm not in that group anymore.
Forget it. It was a cult.
That's just saying that there's.
Wait, let me finish my sentence. It changed my life for the worse.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's definitely, you know.
We won't link it.
It's a really good group. That's all I got to say.
Well, what perspective did it give you?
It's not that it gave me a perspective. It's that it gave me tools to change my perspective.
Interesting.
It was almost like part book club, part coaching classes, part mentoring, part all of these things where, like, they would share books that people that are like in the group kind of had to, like, we didn't have to read them, but the people that were the most successful kind of coaching us and guiding us were saying that these are the things that have helped us get here. So we really recommend you read them. We really recommend
Grow Rich and you know, whatever.
Atomic Habits.
Exactly.
The fucking Nike book, Shoe Dog. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Fucking
what a great book, by the way.
Seriously, highly recommend it.
For sure. So I think, but to your point here, it's like this shell, right? Like, we spend our whole lives putting this shell around us, and like breaking it a little bit is up to you, right? But luckily, like, the more it breaks and the more you allow the light to come in, meaning like these outside influences, these mentors, whether they're good ones or bad ones, like, they're all important in helping figure out, for you to help figure out, like, what kind of entrepreneur am I going to be? Like, what kind of business person do I want to be? Like, what are these people doing that's making them so successful? What in these books or classes they're teaching should I take away and actually enact? Versus, like, you're also seeing the people who are, you know, just talking. Just spinning their wheels and not doing anything. And the obvious results of doing that.
Exactly. And that was
Yeah.
me. That's the thing, that I was the one just spinning my wheels throughout school, college, my job. I was just spinning there being like, yeah, I'm better than like, I'm smarter than all these people, but fuck it. Why am I going to apply
That
myself?
doesn't matter, right? You can be the smartest person, but unless you're doing something with it, sorry, my dog just gave me a look. I'm coming. Don't worry. Ruben's chilling. As long as you're you're self-aware and you're paying attention, like you're going to make the right decisions, or at least learn from the wrong ones that you do.
Exactly.
The other thing that you mentioned in that story, and we're going to continue it, is kind of this is all being self-aware, but like pivoting. So pivoting is a constant. CannaPlanners, for example, this isn't what I set out to do. I thought I was going to open a dispensary. That's the first thing I thought I was going to do. And the reason CannaPlanners came around is because, well, I'm going to have to create a brand. Cannabis isn't even legal in Vermont yet. I'm going to have to build a brand around it. And building the brand, having worked in retail in my previous life, like I ultimately remembered that working in retail sucks because you have to deal with retail customers, and they're a lot. And you pivot and something new happens. Like it's about taking the energy and the skills you've learned and the new information you've gotten and doing something with it. So like, as you're talking and as I've been researching you, I don't know if you watch Bob's Burgers, but like the opening credit of Bob's Burgers, right? Bob and his family are standing there in front of his restaurant, right? And it burns down and rats fall out and all the businesses around him all change. And ultimately, Bob has a restaurant. But I kind of feel like that was you too. Like, like the ad came and it was like, dude, you got 10 days to submit your thing. And then the loan goes away and then COVID happens and money dries up and business partners come and business partners go and ideas change. So take me through that pivot and how, like, why didn't you give up when your investor was like, no?
Yeah. So, and again, I like to keep it very real. So something for you guys to know is that when my investor said no and I lost my partner back then and all that happened, I was fucking depressed. I literally cried that day. I fucking cried because
I'm sure.
it was it was a very emotional thing that 6 months ago, I didn't think it was even possible to raise money to have my own business. And now we were actually making real progress. I had someone that was that had the experience and could take this to market. It was all going so well. And then it all
You're on a breakaway, bro, and you get tackled.
I get tackled. My ankle gave out and I fucking cracked and I fell flat on my face. Yeah. And so when that happened, I was miserable. I had no idea what to do with my life. But literally within a week of all this happening, I got a cold email, or I think it had to have been a Marijuana Moment, that daily newsletter.
Yeah. Tom Angel.
Yeah, Tom Angel. I'm pretty sure in there.
That we will link in the description. Tom's a hell of a dude.
Amen. I'm pretty sure that Lantern issued a press release that was featured in that newsletter saying that they launched their incubator program. So when everything fell apart over here, I was like, what the fuck do I do now? I have this yearning to do something. I realized that not only is it very doable, but I can do 99% of this and take it to the finish line. So why am I just going to give up? And at the time, Evan, he had to go back to Oklahoma to attend his grow facility over there. He was having his own business issues, so he had to go take over the operations. And because of that, we just didn't have the ability to keep working together. He just had to tend to his own things, and I had to do my own stuff. So it was just a natural separation of partners going about on our own story. Like we still talk to each other. I actually have a call with him this afternoon. So like we're still very close. That was just, unfortunately how it ended. So when this incubator program came out, I decided this time, the first time I saw it, I was like, fuck it, I'm submitting an application. Good things happened last time that I jumped on something like this. So I'm going to run with this full steam ahead. So I submit that application. I instantly get invited or accepted. And essentially we have our first class sometime in early May. We get together, and I get to meet Justin Robinson, the CEO of Drizzly and Lantern, and the founder, and like his team of people, and they all start kind of just talking to us, telling us like what their ideas are, why they're doing what they're doing, and what this can mean for us. So because I got accepted into that program, because I was able to get through the licensing process for the cultivation without paying for any lawyers or attorneys or anything like that, to me, it just made perfect sense that, wow, like there's new delivery license coming out. It's exclusive to social equity people. And I'm already accepted to get training from an entity that's already doing regulated deliveries. So why not just put all my eggs in this basket and run over here and see what happens? So I want to say it was a smart business move that I read the market, and I knew that cultivation wasn't going to work. So I shifted to something more promising. I wish that was it. But in reality, it was the gods, the powers of earth, or whatever people call it, pointing me in the right direction, telling me, hey, this plan isn't really working out, but you have a chance over here. So give it a try.
This is the lesson, people listening that aren't Ruben or myself, listening to myself, like, pay attention. You know, the opportunity is there. And when the idea you set out to, you know, the goal you set out to accomplish maybe ultimately fails, like, pay attention, because right next to it is usually another door that's opening saying, hey, this is actually the thing you're supposed to be doing.
And not just that, not
this is like this happens in every podcast I have. Like, there's a story like this where it's like, yeah, we weren't like, but it was right there. It was just to the left of it, you know?
And to me, the bigger story, or like the bigger message there, is that it's okay to take a step back and readjust. Sometimes you may have this perfect plan, but listen to life, because life is ultimately, you can't go against life. Life has a plan for you, and whether you like that or not, you're gonna.
You're just a tourist.
Exactly.
Just a tourist.
So sometimes it's okay to just take a deep breath, analyze the situation, read the tea leaves or whatever that saying is, and adjust accordingly. And a lot of people, going back to that self-awareness thing, they struggle with this. They struggle being aware enough to read the signs of life, to figure out where they can best leverage their tools and opportunities to move forward. And that's something that I really love doing now that I'm in the position I am. People actually like reach out to me and ask me like help and advice and whatnot. And I fucking love it, because I wish that I had someone like me back in the day. So now that people see me like that, I love giving whatever help and support that I can, and trying to help them read their own tea leaves and figure out what's best for them. It's such a fulfilling thing for me to do.
Yeah. For me, it was like, I think I grew up, and call it privilege, call it entitlement or whatever. But I think I grew up expecting the answer to be given to me. That's definitely entitlement and privilege. But like the second, and I think it was a late in life thing for me, dude. You know, I'm a late in life entrepreneur. I started CannaPlanners when I was 37 or something like that. Like,
not late. You know, come on, man.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, you're, you know, you're 20 years younger than me, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you've, that's a little more normal, I'd say, for entrepreneurs, but you get like this moment happens where, whether it's entitlement or fear or any of these things that, lead you to believe that something is expected of you, or you expect something of someone. The moment you figure out that that's not how life works, and that like nothing's going to happen unless you do it, is the most liberating thing, because so much resentment just floods away. And then, to your point you just made of giving back, like, people are entitled. People want information. They want the answers to be given to them. And while you can't enforce what happens with the information you give people, it's valuable to be the dude, to be the person who's able and willing to do it now. Like, I love being in this position, because like, same with you, like, I didn't have a business mentor until like a couple years ago. You know, there was no one growing up alongside of me who was like an inspiration, like entrepreneurially, or even just being a self-sufficient person. You know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
it's
Like
wild. And this is the shit that I love talking about in this thing, is like, we're humans, we have human emotions, and like, you can either give into them, or you can say, hold on, that's not all accurate. And in fact, I got this. Right?
Yeah,
It's a huge thing.
100%.
Let's talk
Huge
about
fucking thing.
Delivered.
Oh, I
Okay,
forgot.
so
But
let's
what's
actually
that?
talk about the company.
Yeah.
So it's a logistics company is not an easy thing, which is what Delivered is, right? You're
At the end of the
in the
day,
same
yeah.
way that UPS is a logistics company, they're not a delivery company. You have to deal with a lot of these same things, in addition to learning how to run a cannabis business, right? You have all these different regulations thrust upon you, in addition to having to figure out how to do a completely new thing. You had zero logistics experience. I mean, you had zero professional cannabis experience too. So it's all new, but I'm curious, beyond this opportunity where Lantern was like showing you that this is a thing, how did you know you could do it?
How did I know I could do it?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
That's the right
just,
answer, Ruben. That's the right answer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was basically just putting like, so one thing about me is that I love studying how operations works. So when I worked at McDonald's, I loved learning about the food line system, how like the cashier systems, how everything that has a role to get the place to efficiently work and serve the consumer in as quick and the best manner possible. Then I went to work at Macy's for a bit, where I learned all the back-end operations of retail establishments and what goes behind brand and merchandise and giving the consumer that good experience, that customer service. Then I went to work at a Marriott hotel in accounting. So I got to learn a lot of the accountant side of things, how the controller creates the annual forecast, how to close the books out every month, how to reconcile books and all that stuff, how to account and place orders, like how to do inventory and properly like be prepared for the next month and whatever. So all of these, and then I went to work at the law firm as a paralegal, where it was another startup, and I was literally the only employee. So I was thrown headfirst into how startups work. It was truly a combination. And then there's obviously the soccer refereeing and all the tools you learned over there. But It was 100% thanks to all of those experiences that I was able to kind of learn what worked best at each organization, be able to unpack every single step, every single SOP, understand why they're there, what they're supposed to be doing, and how they're supposed to be implemented. It was all of those lessons that really, when I was putting this together, it was really just pulling back and looking back at all that and being like, okay, this didn't work over there, so I don't think we should do that here. But on the other hand, when I was working at Macy's, it was these things that really helped drive sales. It was this that really made sure that when we closed the register, all the money was accounted for, that merchandise never went missing. And it was really pulling all of those lessons together and then splitting it out into an SOP and doing that over here. So that was a lot of how it came about.
It's
and
interesting.
Then,
like, I didn't pay attention to any of that shit. None of it. And I'm not talking about what you just said. I was hanging on every word. I'm saying like I think not until my last job, where you mentioned it at the top of the podcast about the air quotes for you listening, the arrogance of feeling like the smartest person in the room. And I don't, like, I wasn't paying attention until basically my last two jobs, right? Like working at Apple, you drink the Kool-Aid of brand and customer experience and all that stuff. And that was a big takeaway for sure coming to this. But mostly for me, the last job I had, I think arrogance, like straight up actual arrogance, where I was like, I'm definitely smarter than my boss. I can do this. But the voice then came back and was like, then go fucking do it, you know, then shut up and do it. And like, that's the part that like changes it from arrogance to confidence.
And it's really funny that you say that, because throughout the time that I was learning from these jobs, I definitely had that arrogance about my superiors, and especially Macy's. I can vividly remember seeing like when like all of my managers at the store would get all wound up and freaked out whenever the regional managers would be coming by. And whenever like they stopped by, I would try my hardest to interact with them. And they were everyday people. It wasn't anything about them that you know just made them smarter or intelligent or anything that really gave them that title, other than earning that title and working their way there. So you know, that really helped me realize that yes, I may think I'm smarter than them, and I may actually be, but unless that I put in the work, it doesn't matter. Something needs to happen for me to get there, other than me just assuming I'm going to end up there. And this was something that back when I was in Macy's, like I was aware of it, but I don't know what would happen. I was still stuck with the victim hat, that like I just didn't know how to actually move forward from there.
The Rock, I'm gonna quote The Rock, so don't hate me. Please don't hate me. I'm gonna quote The Rock. And he's this was I don't know, this came up a couple days ago, just in my algorithms, you know, mostly motivational, a lot of motivational stuff, right? Like that's just what my algorithm is. And it was The Rock being like, you can, you know, you're going to keep saying one day I'll do this. One day I'll do that. One day I'll be here. One day I'll be there. Or you can say day one. And I was like, God damn it, The Rock. Fuck, so smart, muscular. Your head's so beautiful. How do you say such smart things? But it's true. It's like, I can either keep thinking to myself, I could do this better. I could do this. I could do it that way. Whatever, to being like, we're doing it. It's a hugely evolutionary time, you know, a period when that's able to happen to you. So you've only been, you know, Delivered's only been around for a handful of months. What are some of the how many?
1 month and a half as of today.
Yeah, nothing. What challenges are you running? Like, what are some big things you're dealing with this week?
So not even this week. The biggest challenge we've had since opening is brand awareness. The fact that we don't have a storefront where consumers can come and visit, and number two, advertise directly from, severely limits our ability to connect with that consumer.
Is this turning into a sales call, Ruben? We can't. We'll do this privately. We'll take care of you. Okay, we'll handle all this. Okay, we'll make sure people know who you are.
Yeah,
I get it though. It's like you're the faking it till you make it like happens until that first order comes in. Like you're not right. Like until someone buys into the marketing message, until someone buys into the thing, right? It's not real. So getting there it's really hard. I get it.
100%.
So what are you focused on in terms of trying to, beyond maybe some of the things people might think are obvious, like we're active on Instagram and we're writing a blog every so often. Like, what are you doing? How are people going to figure out what Delivered is?
Yeah, so we're on Weed Maps, of course. We're on Leafly. We're on Google My Business. But we're what really separates us, or our biggest approach, has really been a grassroots marketing effort, or guerrilla marketing, whatever you want to call it. Yep. So we literally only have 3 people on the team, but us 3 people go out and attend pop-up events. We will sponsor parties, sponsor concerts, and have a booth there where we are interacting with the consumers and actively getting the name out there. When it's slow at the office, we'll print up posters, and then we'll drive around town and put them up around different businesses and different high trafficking areas. Well, this one cracks me up. But we even printed yard signs, like the signs that politicians use. We got them branded for delivered and saying cannabis home delivery now available. And it's awesome that even when we're driving around doing deliveries, if we're at a stoplight, we can literally just open the door. And so like that's such an effective way to get the name out there. Then there was another one. It was a really fun one I was about to mention, but it just slipped my mind. We are doing raffles and partnerships with different artists and brands. So Nimbus Cannabis Co. They have an artist over there who personally hand designed a skateboard for us. Cool. And then we went ahead and raffled that skateboard off. So we attended a skateboarding event and brought it out there and said, like us, share us, and shout us out, and you get entered to win the skateboard. So different things like that. There's one,
but it is super grassroots. This will come to you. It'll be 2:00 in the morning, and you can call me, dude. You can call me anytime. Just edit the story back in. But you do these bootstrappy, and I'm not demeaning it by calling it bootstrappy. These are the things that every business does. Maybe not necessarily yard signs, but whatever version of that. Like we've all done it, and these are all things that you have to do, because it's not like, well, we can talk briefly about getting money, because I think that's an important lesson for listeners to hear about. But we all start off doing the same sorts of things. We all, we have to get the name out there in some way. You have to fake it until you make it. And, I
remembered the other one. I love this one. I love it because of the collaboration aspect. So we partnered up with a bunch of small businesses in the Worcester area. And if you shop with us, we will give you a punch card that you take to these businesses, and they'll give you a discount for shopping with them just because you shopped with us before. Cool. So, and then
this is
exactly
that, like beyond like getting that customer, you're strengthening that relationship with your partners too, which is exactly important.
Because that's one thing that's huge for us in our values. Like, I don't want a yacht. I don't want to be the richest person alive. I'm only going to be fulfilled.
You can come on my yacht.
Thank you. Only if the team can come too. But what really, right? For now. What I love is giving back and helping other people reach their goals and be where they want to be. So for me, Deliver doesn't have to make all the money. If we can, there's more than enough money for everyone to have their own fair slice in this world, in my opinion. So we're really trying to put our money where our mouth is and build these relationships with the community. That way, we're not the only ones getting rich. We want everyone else to grow with us, and we want to be a part of that growth with the community.
This is a hugely important thing, I think you're saying, and I think it's even more important because we're in the cannabis industry. Like, those are really honorable values to have, Ruben, and people should have values like that. But I think, like, if you're not in the cannabis industry with values like that, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong, 100%. Take me through fundraising real quick. How can my investors who want to start a company raise money?
Yeah, no, it was a very challenging time of my life, that's for sure. I had no idea how to raise money too. Like, this was something that I learned as I was doing, but it really came down to networking. 100% networking was what.
And I've heard you say, like, you've said that you were not good at it. You sucked at networking before you had to do it. There comes a point where you have to do it. You have to go to the front of the class and take your hoodie off.
And to be honest, Will, I still hate networking to this day. Like, if it's up to me, I'd be at home smoking weed all day long, just playing FIFA, watching TV, hanging out. I'm only an extrovert on TV. Or exactly. But no, I realized that I needed to expand my circle and get people in my network that actually, one, had money, 2 had experience, and 3 knew what they were doing. That way that I could learn from someone. So after all of that, like the incubator program, and I learned all of that stuff, I went a good 6 months with me just kind of running around with a chicken without its head. I found like 2 different locations that thankfully I was able to tie them down without any money down, but they didn't end up working for one reason or another. So throughout 6 months or so, I was throwing things on the wall without having any money and just seeing what would actually stick and what would be the best vehicle to actually raise that money with once I could do that. So the opportunity came when I was still working as a paralegal. My boss, he's also a big believer in giving back. So he was working with a nonprofit called Kids in Need of Defense. This nonprofit is focused to help immigrant children who have no family, kind of give them an opportunity to learn about how the U.S. works and help them get their feet on the ground and move forward with their life. So they were rolling out a mentoring program, and my boss immediately contacted me and he said, "Hey man, I think you would be a great mentor for these kids. I think you should really go do this." So to me, it made perfect sense. Coming from an immigrant family myself, I wanted to go give back and whatnot. But my bigger objective to do this was to network and see what other mentors would be there. So I apply for it. I get accepted as a mentor. We go have our seminar, like to meet our mentees. And it's here where it's not like I just blew off my mentee. I obviously went with the intention to meet him and whatnot, but I was more interested in meeting the other mentors. So I started shaking hands with them, talking with them. And it was there where I met Jackson Mejia. He is the first co-founder of Delivered Inc. and the first person to invest money into this business. So I pitch him the idea and I tell him, "Look, this is what I'm working on. Any chance we want to join forces and work together?" He gets so excited, he invites me to his house like the next day or something. I drive over there. We spend a late night just talking business, pitching him the idea. And he's like, "I'll get back to you." So this is November, December of 2021, I want to say. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2021 for sure. And I don't hear back from him for a couple of weeks. So I'm kind of like, what the fuck is happening? Or is he going to join? Is he interested? So I call him up in a couple of weeks after that, and just to follow up, see, "Hey man, do you want to work together? What's up?" This guy, he answers the phone and he's like, "Hey man, I decided to partner up with my brother who also qualifies for social equity. So I'm actually going to work with him and do this with him and forget you." So he basically took my idea and just ran with it. It's like, fuck me, like back to square one, back to trying to figure shit out. So during this time, it was probably one of the hardest times of my life. My dad actually passed away right around this time of the year. And
condolences.
Yeah, thank you. That really made me lose my momentum, really made me lose all the ambition to even have a business or anything. Then the double power, whatever, is that Jackson took my idea and ran with it with someone else.
Double whammy.
Exact double whammy. So
double
I'm
whammy
down
gets you every time.
Every fucking time.
One whammy's not good enough. It's always got to be a double.
So I'm poor me, pouting on the ground. What the fuck am I gonna do? April of 2022 comes around. Again, at this point, I'm completely lost in the sea. I don't even have a location anymore. I was basically ready to throw in the towel at this point. Yeah. But then Jackson calls me back up and he's like, "Hey man, you still working on your project? Things didn't work out well with me and my brother, but I would love to work with you. I really believed in you. I'm sorry that I just took your idea and ran with it, but I'm back. I really trust you. I really want to work with you. You tell me what you need from me to make it work, and we'll make it work." So I told him, yeah. So at this point, I feel salty because he already did me bad the first time. Of course,
he already ghosted you once. He took your thing and left.
Exactly, and then you add in the fact. Then you throw in that my dad passed away. I have no momentum. I feel like things are going nowhere. So I'm like, all right, So I'm like,
Right.
all right, Jackson, you want to work together? Here's my requirements. I need a salary. I need a salary so I can quit my job and focus on this full time. This guy actually, from his group of friends, he actually got the money to give me a salary to allow me to quit my job and focus on this startup full time. And that salary was more than what I was making at my job back then. So how could I complain about that? When he agreed to that, it was no fucking
He made
brainer
up
to
for his fuck up.
more than made up for it. He really realized that he made a mistake and he wanted to work with me, and he definitely put his money where his mouth was. And not only that, but he actually went out and before I quit my job, he went out and found our first location, and he found the investor to like a real estate investor who came up and put in more than half of the money to secure that location. So this guy, like, he really meant what he was saying, and it was clear to me. So at that point, it was a no-brainer. We partnered up, and it's thanks to him that he then I was the one that put together the business plan, the financial models, the projections, and all of that good stuff. And then he kind of brought that to his network of people, and he was able to get money from that group of people, plus himself. He himself put in a good 75,000 or so. So yeah, so 100% the money that we raised was because of me getting out of my shell, going to network, and being willing to put myself in a vulnerable position, to the point I was so vulnerable to the point that he was able to take my idea and run with it. But it comes down to having, that
it's
factor.
Not the idea. It's
no,
like, it's bare, like, and I think about this all the time because, if I boil it down to its most simple definition, CannaPlanners is a web development company.
yeah,
right? Web development companies have been around since the 90s. We're not, logistics companies, delivery companies have been around since the dawn of the truck, right? Like these things are not new things. It's just how we apply them. And the fact that like this guy was like, Jackson was like, it's the idea that's valuable, not Ruben. And then had the realization that like, no, these things are symbiotic. It's Ruben's idea and Ruben that make this thing special. That's why this is going to be a success. That's why I believed in it, not because the idea was good,
exactly.
Like who, yeah.
And I hate to put it that way because again, that reminds me of
No,
like, that makes me
I'm
feel
putting
like,
it that way, Ruben. I put it that way. I'm reflecting on what you're saying, but like, it's true. It's like, very rarely does the idea, it's the person behind the idea that actually bears the fruit of what that, that idea can potentially become.
yeah,
I think it's great.
no.
And I'm really eager to see, only 2 months in or whatever, how this actually goes.
And one more thing, sorry, not to cut you off, Will, but on the fundraising side of things, that was only our first raise. Since then, we did do a crowdfunding raise, bless you, where we actually were able to raise around $80,000 from literally people in the community.
People believe in you.
People could invest as little as $100. And we ran the campaign from September to December of 2022. And in those 3 or 4 months, we raised $80,000.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I didn't think we were going to do that. Well, I did not think. And the craziest part for me is that through that platform, we gave out zero equity, nothing. Everyone that invested there did it because they believed in the idea, and they're going to get a return, of course. But when you invest $100 and you're getting that return through 5 years, that's really not much of a return. Like that. No. It has to be that you truly believe in the people and the exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So that to me was,
but listen, it's not symbolic to you because until like I can remember, and I've talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast, but like I can remember the day I was fired from my job and, internalizing that and victimizing myself over it and all the bullshit and the, I'm not going to be able to get through this. And I didn't really do any fundraising for CannaPlanners before we started. It was all every sale sort of led to the next sale. And like, I just kept kind of investing anything I made from right back into the company.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
Well, thanks. But the validation aspect, like no matter where it comes from, right? Like for me, it was from the first contract, the week I got fired from my 9-to-5 job, right?
Wow.
It was like, oh my God, I got this. In that instance, like I only had myself and this particular client to like validate myself, right? But on your hand, you have you have Jackson and his whole network of people. You have this whole, whoever all these nameless, faceless people on the internet who gave you 80 grand
literally
are like
people from across the country that I've never met, nothing, dude. Yeah, insane.
And then you're like, oh fuck, I don't have a choice. Like now this is real, right?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. And one more, we have another investor who invested through a safe. This gentleman, again, like it's crazy how putting yourself out there opens up unbelievable opportunities. So I'm sure you've seen that I post kind of often on LinkedIn, and I've been doing that consistently for the last year and a half. So I started it at the beginning of 2022. Yeah, January 2022 is when I started posting, just opening up about my experience, talking about everything going on and all this good stuff. And it was one of those posts that went somewhat viral, that someone, like a gentleman that lived in the Boston area, who his whole life he's been involved in real estate investing. He saw that ad or that post, and he commented on it saying, how can I get involved in the cannabis industry? Something along those lines.
Yep.
So immediately I get on the phone with him and I'm like, hey man, you're a Latino like me. The least I can do is I would love to help you get into this industry one way or another. Here's what you can do. I can show you how you can come up with your own idea, come up with your own projections, and go and raise your own money, and then you can do your own thing. That's totally fair if that's what you want to do. But you also have the option to come into my team of people. If you have any money laying around, we could use some additional help, and we could definitely use more expertise from people that know what they're doing. So these are your options. You tell me what you want to do, and I don't care what you decide, but I'm going to help you either way. The next day he calls me up and he's like, hey man, I want to invest in your company. How can we do this? So it's crazy that
put yourself out there. That's what it boils down to, Ruben. And that's what I hope people are taking away from this. Like, you can be the victim. You can whatever the reason is, there's a billion gajillion reasons you can tell yourself to not like do the thing that something is calling you to do. Or you can say, fuck it, let's do it. Day one.
Amen,
right?
Dude. It's safe to say, no lie whatsoever, but the only reason I was able to raise more than $200,000 that I raised was 100% a direct result of putting myself out there. Whether it was me pitching Jackson, whether it was me just sharing my story on social media, or whether it was me using a new platform to like the crowdfunding campaign and sharing my story on that platform and just sharing it repeatedly to different networks. It was 100% a result of that we were able to raise money. Oh, and one of my favorite investors, I forgot to even mention, one of my landlords of my previous apartment where I was living, in Rhode Island, actually. So before I quit the paralegal job in Boston, but after I started working on all this, my fiance and I, we were trying to figure out how to cut bills. How can we afford to keep living? How can we afford to not have a job and do all this shit and still, afford everything? So we ended up moving to Rhode Island because rent's a lot cheaper there compared to Boston. So we had significant savings there. We didn't think much of it, it's just, we had a typical renter relationship at first. Yeah. And then, so one day, our landlord comes down to town. She's just getting to know us. She lived in New York and she would only crash at that home once every few months or whatever. So she came down to crash there for a few days and get to know us and whatnot. So not once did I pitch her will. Not once did I even mention to her that I'm working on a startup. But we end up inviting her for dinner. We have a little cookout. We're having a nice meal, getting to know each other, just shooting the shit. And then she starts asking me like, so Ruben, what do you do? What do you have going on? And I try to like, I was scared, to be honest with you. I was like, fuck, if I tell her what I'm doing, she's not going to trust us as renters because how are we going to afford to pay the bills? Exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, how can I?
Unemployed potheads.
Yeah, literally. Yep. So like, how can I tell her what I'm working on without scaring her? So like, I was very shy of opening up to her, but I slowly started telling her that I'm working on the startup. We're raising money, trying to put it together. And she's like, holy shit. I actually just, I got in a fight with the person that was managing my money before. So I just pulled all of my retirement money from that account. So I casually have it sitting around in my bank account right now, trying to figure out where I should invest it. So she starts asking me, are you looking for investors? How can I become a part of this? And I'm like, literally, I'm like, we could use the help. But again, like I was just scared, like, how could, like it was scary, but ultimately she ended up becoming one of our first investors as well.
There's listen, the energy of an ambitious person, especially when that energy is so purposeful and has intent and meaning and drive, like it's contagious as fuck, dude. Like people just like, it doesn't even matter what the idea is. It's like, oh, like Ruben, like whatever you're doing, like there's people who exist out there that just have that that thing, that energy, and people just want to be part of whatever it is they're doing. I can't relate to that. People are repelled by me constantly.
Hey, come on now. Why am I on this call then? Are you telling me you're gonna ruin my reputation? Gonna have to delete the whole thing.
It's not my intent, bro. Ruben Seyde, you are a pleasure to talk to. And the last thing I have for you is cannabis ears are kind of like dog ears. And this is so new for you. So I won't ask what you have in store for the next 5 years, but I'm curious about the next 3 months.
One really fucking cool thing we're going to be rolling out. We're actually the only company in Massachusetts that's going to offer this. We're going to offer a subscription program where that subscription is going to allow the subscriber to have a direct live stream view into a couple of our different cultivation partners. So the viewer will be able to not only watch their weed grow in real time, but they can even pre-order it before it's even harvested.
I love that.
So now like the real connoisseurs are able to literally go in on camera, pick out what cola from the plant they think looks the best, and secure that before it's even chopped out.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's just, creating a deeper emotional connection to something that people are emotionally connected to.
And it's funny because they aren't in the legal market, but I come from the legacy market. So I didn't talk too much about this, but I was trapping back in the day. Like I would sell from my dorm room, from my home, from my car, from everywhere. And in that time, I started working with another legacy brand. His name is the Ari Lion. He would he was like big in the Boston area, and he would grow his own weed at home that he would then gift to consumers. He had a very loyal following that he was able to build because he was transparent. Every day he would show videos of him tendering his plants, taking care of them, watering them, clipping them, singing to them, literally fucking everything that he does to the plants, he was showing to the community. And I was his passion, and I was his driver at the time. So I was interacting with the community on a daily basis, and they would all tell me how they were so hyped to buy his weed because they would see how it was grown. They got to have that personal connection with him, which converted them into loyal consumers that would shop time and time again. So that's what essentially we're trying to replicate in the legal market. We're going to be only rolling this program out with craft cultivators like Bailey's Buds and Fresh Connection. They're going to be two of our first partners. We haven't figured out which one's going to be the one that we roll out with just yet, but it's going to be one of those two. And it really just comes down to giving the consumer that transparent experience to see the plant from seed to sale.
I love it. And again, it's just another example of that ambitious energy that's contagious. Like, you're telling a story, you give a shit, you know, and you learned from the people around you who gave a shit. Ruben Seyde, you've gone from ref to coach. It is an amazing story. You didn't take no for an answer, and you never gave up. That's the moral of the story, my guy. Never give up. We are so proud of the work you do. We're honored to help support you here at CannaPlanners. We're psyched for what you do. Tell our guests where they can learn more about you and Delivered.
Before I do that, I do want to take a moment to shout out CannaPlanners and anyone out there that's looking for any type of web development, SEO, marketing, branding. CannaPlanners are your fucking go-to people.
Thank you, dude.
They're one of the OGs in the industry. I was hearing about them well before I was even working on Delivered or anything, and I've only heard amazing things about them. And myself, I've only experienced amazing things. So you heard it here, folks. If anyone's looking for any type of cannabis web development or cannabis online development in general, Will over here with CannaPlanners is your fucking man. So Delivered Inc., of course, you can find us on at thedeliveredinc.com. That's our website. At The Delivered Inc. At The Delivered Inc. is our social media handle, and on Facebook, whereas Delivered Inc. Clinton, Massachusetts.
Awesome. We will be sure to link all of those in the description below. Ruben Seyde, you've been an absolute pleasure to talk to. Thank you so much. This has been another episode of Common SENSimilla. I've been your host, Will Reed. Please like, subscribe, share, do all the things that everybody else on YouTube asks you to do when you watch their videos. We appreciate it. It helps us reach new people. What do you got?
And I was your guest today, Ruben Seyde of Delivered Inc. Huge shout out again to Will Reed for hosting me here. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate the platform.
My pleasure. Anytime. We're going to do this again in a couple months once you got some revenue and you're crushing it.
Thanks,
everybody. Peace.